Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. We're going to get started in just a minute. I'm just getting settled in here. For practice. So, I may have to adjust a little as we're going through the session today. So bear with me. Okay. Oh, no problem, Silvana. We mentioned this yesterday, and some of you may not have been on the first call yesterday, but what's really important to know is that every session that we're doing, every live session Monday through Friday is recorded and will be available to you to listen into on your own pace. So while we love having you all here with us live, please do make an effort because it's really important to stay connected as we're navigating all of this. It's not just important for all of you, it's important for us. If you miss a session, don't be hard on yourself, right? So if that inner critic comes up, I can't be here for every session, that I'm not teaching, of course, and neither can you, likely. So when you have another priority that you have to just come into it when you can and just begin again, right? So the Tuesday and Thursday sessions, my name's Jennifer. Call me Jen. I'm the COB. I act as, I'm also the CEO. I'm also a teacher, and I've been teaching these practices since 2008. I've been a student of yoga and mindfulness for the last 21 years. These practices that I'll be working with you all on, that I'll be teaching you and expressing through this medium, thank God for it, right? I lean into myself. So these are my daily practices. These are practices that I have taught for the last 12 years and really witnessed people, hundreds, if not thousands at this point, of people really being transformed, incredibly transformed and supported by these practices. So there's a lot of faith there and trust. And I want you to know that, and something, we just had a team meeting actually, and something I expressed to my team is that even with that foundation, 20 plus years of consistent practice of really trusting and leaning into these practices again and again, even in the darkest of moments, what I've been experiencing in the last 2 weeks, but especially last week, is that I really noticed that there was also this sense of, or this experience of death. Like here I am in the midst of this, and there is this hindrance surfacing that is really making me doubt that I have the inner resources, not only for myself, but for all of you. And I want you to know that that's really normal right now. So these practices, whatever inner resources that you've been able to cultivate in your life, that doesn't mean that they're not working. It just means that that's part of the process. And I really needed support to see that clearly. So leaning into my teachers, I had a session with my primary teacher last Friday, leaning into, I have an IFS therapist that I've been working with for 6 years, internal family. Met with her this morning, and just to gain some clarity on what is this that's for me and how do I work with it, And how do I sit, how do I remain in the seat of the teacher and give you the confidence you need when I'm also experiencing this, right? And that's trauma. That's the experience of facing this global suffering right now, being with it and understanding it to be so, that this is what we're being asked to do right now, is turn towards this really uncomfortable space where there is no ground, right? So the rug keeps getting pulled from beneath each of us, and we know that here, oh, here we are, right? So I wanted to start out by telling you that, so that you know that going into this experience, that what we are not promising is, I'm not going to sit here and promise you that if you commit to this experience, you commit to these practices, that rainbows and butterflies will appear. This doesn't eliminate this really hard experience that's in front of us, that we're in the muck, we're in this muck together. It doesn't make it disappear. It doesn't make the stress go away. What these practices do is they cultivate steadiness, so we can navigate it from a really authentic space. And even when that authenticity is dark and dismal and full of uncertainty, we can trust that we could show up with heart, right? I had someone a few weeks ago ask me about happiness, that you know, they just wanted to be happy. They, you know, somebody I was coaching, they were turning towards these practices. This is of course before the shit hit the fan, right? I just want to be happy, and I think that this is the path. And I said, well, I said, that's interesting, and I think that word is interesting for me, happiness. And while I experience joy and happiness, and I could really drop into those moments even now, right? Because there's moments. Even now, I'm able to do that. But really, I think the motivation for me consistently in coming to these practices again and again, daily informal practices and informal practices, is so that I can trust steadiness, cultivating that as an inner resource. That I really believe that coming into some space, and I'm saying this on not just an emotional, from an emotional and mental perspective, right, developing those capacities, but energetically, for that steadiness, physically finding equanimity in the system. I want you to think of yourself broadly in that way as we go through this experience, because what we're looking for is trying to bring all of those capacities into this space of steadiness. It's not just the emotional unsteadiness that we're feeling. That ripples into really throwing off our whole system. So that's what we're trying to tackle in these Tuesday, Thursday sessions, is how to drop into myself, looking towards this inner landscape that is made up of all of these different components and elements, and check in with honesty to what's happening right now. And then how do I lean into the right practices to navigate from that space? So it's learning to look, recognize, acknowledge, and then cultivate practices and routine and what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, it'll come to me. That's the risk of doing these things without a script. It's cultivating these your life in a way, and you know, our lives have gone from this macro level into this very micro experience of, you know, being in our homes, communicating through mediums that none of us are comfortable with, but adapting to. And how do I shift rather quickly according to what I need right now? And by the way, that will change every day. So we can't depend on a practice that may have worked 5 years ago, or 5 days ago, or even 5 minutes ago. We have to be willing to kind of ride this shifting, this wave. Okay. So it's constantly checking in, like, okay, hey, what's here? And what can I do with what's here, with what's true right now, so that I could show up in a way that honors this space inside. So we're going to start today by dropping into a practice together. And this will be a mindfulness practice. And this practice in particular is focused on grounding us in our bodies. Okay, so I'm going to back up a little. I'll get smaller on your screen. If you can, go ahead and mute your microphone just to keep the background noise down. And then we can open those microphones back up for questions. Also, I would like you to, and I think we said this yesterday, so if you weren't on the call yesterday, if you could grab a pen and a notebook or journal or paper, and just keep it near you for this practice today, that will also be helpful, because we'll be kind of layering, practicing, and then also journaling. Okay. One more thing, what you'll also notice is I have my iPhone here with me. I'll be using my Insight Timer app, and the Insight Timer app is fantastic because, number one, it's free. There's fantastic content on here. There's at least 30 to 40,000 different guided practices on here. I'm on here as a teacher. You can connect to me, but that's not necessary, and I don't check it quite frequently, so don't hold me to that. I'd prefer you asking me questions through our platform. But I wanted to use this because what's wonderful about this is there's a great there's a great timer on this app. So if you could kind of see that, and this timer is really helpful because then when you're doing these practices on your own, without a guided experience. So we are including guided experiences in the portal, but what we're trying to do is get you comfortable enough so that you could start using these practices that I'm teaching you in the Tuesday, Thursday sessions to work with. And having the timer downloaded on your phone is fantastic, because then you're not constantly thinking, oh, how much time do I have left, right? So I don't care if you're using the Insight Timer or if you're using an egg timer from your kitchen, or an alarm clock or whatever. Just, it's helpful to have something, a tool you could use. So we're going to be working with this. So you'll see me periodically from time to time, just setting it up. We'll be working in chunks of time based on a very traditional amount of time called an agatika. And a Gautaka is from the Tibetan practices. It's a cycle of energy that is mapped in 24 minutes. So my typical daily formal practice for mindfulness meditation is 24 minutes. But if I'm not working with 24 minutes, I work in segments of that. So 12 minutes, 6 minutes, 3 minutes. And we're starting together with this 3-minute block. So you can start getting comfortable and build some confidence in working with settling into spaciousness or quietude within that 3-minute time frame. So that's why I want to bring your attention to it, because it's something that I'm going to ask you to work with on your own. So this is set for 3 minutes. For those of you that have never worked with these mind training practices before, just to kind of backstep you, when we start, we're sitting up either in a chair. So you might be in a chair. Right now, and I don't know if you can see it, but I'm on my meditation cushion. I'm in my space where I practice every day. You could use either. If you're sitting in a chair, I'd like you to ground your feet. So uncross your legs if they're crossed. And just ground your feet right underneath your knees. And then just relax your hands and rest them on your legs. And whether you're sitting in a chair or on your cushion, just lift the crown of the head up towards the sky. Relax the shoulders back and down. And I'll invite you now to just either close your eyes or take your gaze forward slightly and down, and just kind of soften the gaze, resting your eyes on a drishti, or just one restful space. And in just a moment, you'll hear 3 bells, and these bells are simply to pull your attention inward. So just noticing that the sounds of the bells have dissolved. And I'd like to invite each of you now to just bring your attention into your body, into this seat, into this shape that you're in. Just really noticing it, really feeling how your body is right now. Your feet against the floor. If you're sitting on a cushion, what parts of you are touching? What parts of your body are landing? Now gently guide your attention into the hands. Notice the weight of the hands on your legs. Notice the warmth in this space, and also notice the weight or heaviness here in the hands. And just a few more breaths right here. Resting your attention in your hands. Just rest and open your attention into that sound of the bells, bringing us back into this virtual space together. And as the sound begins to dissipate, you could simply just bring your chin down. When you're ready, you could just open your eyes. Perhaps even bring your camera back on. And we'll come back into this space together. So, so that was just 3 minutes and it goes by really fast. So you could see how trying that on your own doesn't have to feel overwhelming, right? It could just be this space to pause or land. And what we know to be true is that during transitions, any transition, so we're experiencing a lot of transitions right now in the day. So if you're like me, you have children home or your spouse home or partner, perhaps even extended family. I have pets, cats and dogs. And it's a lot of transitions all day, from going to my professional obligations and constantly feeling distracted by kids needing help or asking for food or the dog wanting to go out. And it's this constant shift of transition. And what I'm noticing is that if I just take 2 to 3 minutes intentionally before I sit down to kind of try to tackle a project or a task, especially professionally, if I just take a few minutes to land in my body, to close my eyes, to notice my breath, that when those distractions pop up, I'm not as reactive. And so it's you could almost think of the practices, and I want you to think of the practices as preventative medicine to stay in a responsive tone. And the reality is we're all having these experiences. So it's nothing to, so much is out of our control, and it's nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed about or overwhelmed by. The distractions are going to come. They're largely out of our control, and we can proactively instill a sense of calm, knowing that this is what's true right now, right? So just by kind of hacking into the nervous system, calming things down, dropping into the project at hand, whether that's professional or personal in nature, and then staying open to the distractions coming, kind of accepting, okay, this is going to happen. And I could just mute myself and respond instead of feeling really reactive, right? It just prevents that reactivity from taking over. And it's a practice because it's not easy. Okay. So I was just on a call, I said, with our team, and, you know, my dog, I have a Bernese Mountain Dog and a German Shepherd. And of course they're in heaven because we're home, right? And I'm sitting in my kitchen, which is the only quiet spot in my house right now. And the dog thinks that because I'm in the kitchen, he could come and go out of the house as many times as he wants to when I'm on a meeting. So I felt myself getting really reactive and aggravated, even though I should have all the skills to remain calm. So remember, it's a practice. We're doing the best we can. We do these practices proactively as preventative medicine and strategy to help us to feel some more supported. And yet, we're still human beings that are going to be reactive. Okay, so it's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to unfold the way that we wish it would. Right? So, we're going to do another practice, but I first wanted to talk to you about this space inside the body called the hara. And the hara, the word hara comes from Japan, the Japanese culture, and it is this space below the navel, so in the low belly. So, I'd like you all to sit up nice and tall. And no matter, however you're sitting, or even if you're standing, and just close your eyes for a moment and bring your attention, and you could even bring your hand, your right hand or your left hand, it doesn't matter, and just place that hand. Let's all stay with our right hand for now, just for logistical reasons. And just place your hand on the belly. And see if you can just tap into your natural breath right now. So really try to resist any urge to manipulate the breath or change it. See if you could just be with the breath as it is right now and notice where the breath is in your body. So where is the breath landing for you right now in this moment? Where is the touch of the breath inside? Now gently bring your awareness down to your hand on the belly. And notice if you're experiencing tension there in this belly space. Is the belly soft and open? Or is the belly rigid and tight? Notice also if you're kind of experiencing both. Try to relax into this space as much as you can. And now see if you can bring your breath a little lower into this belly space. Just like a baby breathing. Softly opening the belly and encouraging the breath down. There's a gentle lengthening here in the in-breath and in the out-breath. Just a lingering. And as your attention drops a little deeper down into the belly space, notice what qualities are right here in your body, in your belly. In other words, how would you describe this space in your body? If you could just imagine one word, because there might be many coming up. And just see if you can land your attention on one word that feels really true for you. Try to relax into that truth. And with your right hand on your belly, bring your left hand right over the heart center. And feel the weight of your hand right on your heart. Notice the weight of your hand, your right hand on your belly. And imagine this sense of just being held in wisdom and in truth and in compassion. Just a few more breaths here. And simply release your hands, just rest them on your lap. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. And we'll come back into this virtual Sangha, this virtual community together. So let's take a moment. So I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes while this is fresh in you. So you'll hear the bells again. And I'd like you to just write out that word. So I want you to write the word out and then just take 3 minutes. So we're going to start the tones now. Just take 3 minutes to see what comes of that. So this is just a free writing exercise based on that word that you found in your belly space. And I also want to name that if nothing was the answer, if you felt nothing there, write nothing and work with that. So there's no wrong experience here. The most important thing is to just be honest with what you're experiencing and with what is coming up for you. Even if that is, this is frustrating, this was not what I was expecting. So even that is so helpful right now, okay? We're working with this inner landscape, navigating this inner landscape. And we have one more minute here together. And we'll hear those bells in just a moment. And you could go ahead and put down your pens, and let's just talk a little bit about the hara, because we're going to keep working with the hara and coming back to the hara quite often in these practices. So this space of the hara is our earth center. It's the space of knowing. It's a space of authenticity, truth, wisdom. The space of the hara is sometimes known as the womb of totality. It is a space of primordial wisdom, so ancestral wisdom that we can tap into. And so often the space of the belly is full of tension, right? And we don't even notice it because we're not paying attention. We're not attending to it. So some of you may have noticed when you dropped in, oh, I'm like holding my belly in, or there's lots of rigid sensation here. And it's really important to notice that and intentionally soften. And it's so connected. Think of this space where we're processing and digesting and releasing, right, in so many ways, but also connected to the gut and how we're processing emotion. So this is going to, it's something we'll keep coming back to, the connection between our feeling self, our emotions and emotional state, the brain, and sorry, my phone was still making sounds. This brain gut connection and this brain gut biome. So often we're holding on quite rigidly in this space and we're not able to process our feelings at the same time. And it's so interconnected. Last night on our Facebook Live page, on the Studio B Facebook Live page, I taught a class, a yin yoga class, that was specifically focused on the lungs and the large intestine, the space of the hara, and the lungs processing loss, which in Chinese medicine, the organs are a lung, the lungs are an organ that hold onto grief. And we're experiencing so much loss collectively. We're experiencing loss on a global scale, and we're all experiencing it together. And this has never happened before. We have never experienced a loss like this before. So there's a lot of feelings getting really sticky here. And the stickiness is the problem. When we're having a feeling come up and we're able to process it and move it through, there's no problem with that. We're always experiencing, the body's always processing and experiencing emotions and feelings constantly. The body's always absorbing, whether or not we're paying attention. It's when we're not able to process whatever's coming up that feelings or emotions could get, I don't want to use the word dangerous, but that's when they get tricky, right? And that's when we could feel quite stuck. So if you've been feeling that, if that's been coming up for you and not able to express it, but knowing that I'm just stuck, like I don't know, I know I'm not processing something, I would urge you to attend to the lungs. So how do we do that? So there's practices for this. Yin yoga specifically is what I'm talking about today, but there's also lots of practices and support for the lungs from Chinese medical modalities, acupuncture, acupressure, which we'll continue exploring some acupressure points that we could use together. And we'll also share some information on different foods that help us to bring these imbalances into harmony. Okay, so again, steadiness, because we're going to have these experiences. So what we're trusting, whether we're doing a meditation practice, whether we're doing a pranayama practice, the breathing practices, whether we're doing a movement practice, whether that movement is active yoga, whether it's hiking or running outside, whether that practice is yin yoga or restorative yoga, what we need to trust is that we're inviting chi in, prana, life force energy, which is coming in through this conduit of breath. The breath is the conduit. The breath is not the healing energy. There's a different force there. And we're inviting it in through the breath. And what we need to trust is that the chi or prana, whatever you want to call it, oxygen, if that's what you want to call it, can correct any imbalances in the system. Okay, so there's three things that make yin yoga, very specifically yin yoga, very powerful. And those three things are, we're taking shapes in the body that are designed to place our body into a way that the energy could map through the meridians to clear out any dysfunction, whether we're in excess or depletion, it doesn't matter. So the shapes itself are designed to move chi or prana through the system in a way that we could clear things out. Okay, so number one, it's the shape. Number two, when we're in the shape, we're asked to come to a space of stillness. So in order to do that, we have to consider and respect the fact that we're staying in these shapes for a much longer time than we're doing in an active practice. So in an active yoga practice, we might be in a specific shape for 5 to 10 breaths, right? And we're kind of doing the same thing. The shape has energy and we're moving energy through the system. But in yin yoga, we're going really deep into the yin tissues of the body. So the fascia, the connective tissue, your bones, we're going down into the earth center of the body. And we're asking the energy to settle there and clear imbalances. So in order to remain still for the amount of time that we need for the energy to do the work, we have to come into a space that doesn't overwhelm the system. So I don't want you to think of your capacities physically being the same as they would be in an active practice. In active practices, we're warming the muscle body, we're focused on the muscles, the yang tissues, and we're able quite often to go much deeper. In yin yoga, we're working with a cool body and we're targeting these deep inner tissues. So it's really important when you go into the shape that we're going to practice in just a moment, that you don't go beyond where you should be. Okay, so just backing off a little. Lastly, as we're cultivating that stillness, our attention needs to be in the body. So the mind will continue to want to control the experience. When you're distracted or pulled away by the mind, simply return back into the body. And the body communicates in these practices by giving you sensation. And quite often that sensation is uncomfortable. And this is the perfect time to practice sitting with discomfort. That's why this practice is so powerful and potent. Okay, now it's important to know that discomfort is different than pain. Okay, so pain's not acceptable in any practice. Okay, but discomfort is typically something that will feel dull. It could feel deep. It should not feel sharp, electrical, or fiery. If any of those things come up, we want to move out of it really slow and release that sharpness. But discomfort is something that we could train up our capacities in. We could start being with discomfort, and the body could start communicating what's happening in there. So along with that physical discomfort might come some strong emotion. You might feel very sad. You might start crying. You might feel angry or irritated, agitated. You might feel incredible joy, ecstasy, happiness. You might feel silly or giggly. Nothing is wrong. Okay? What's important is that you don't attach a story to it. Oh, I feel agitated because I got in a fight with my partner earlier today, right? Or I feel fearful because of what's happening right now. That could be true, but I don't want you to get attached to the story that might come up with it. Instead, just watch the sensation peak and dissolve. Experience the emotion come up, spread out, and then possibly move or dissipate. That's when we know that whatever's sticky inside, the cobwebs that emerge in the mind, in the heart mind, that's when they start clearing away. And that's when we can start coming back into this space of equanimity or balance. So with all that being said, there's two shapes. Well, actually it's one shape, two sides. Okay, that I really want to boil down to for the practices today. And this is a reclined spinal twist. So I'm going to do the best I can with what I have in giving you a view in, and it's not perfect. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and show you the shape that I want you in. If you know the shape, you can turn your camera off. You could get on the floor. You could do this right. I don't have a yoga mat right here right now. I'm just going to be practicing on the floor, showing you on the floor. And then we're going to hold the shape for 5 minutes on each side. So what does this look like? So you're going to recline back and down on the floor or on your yoga mat. And we're going to start by crossing the right knee over the left knee. Now, for some of you, you may just be better served keeping your knees together, okay? So I'll show you this first. We're going to hug the knees in and then take them over to the left side. So you can see I moved my hips a bit. Once you do that, just bring the right arm overhead. Okay, and you could rest the left hand wherever you want. So this is the shape. If I was crossing my legs over, it would go a little deeper into my spine, and it would cause a little more of a tugging sensation across the top of the right chest and into that right shoulder area. Okay, so I'd like you all to go into the shape. You could, of course, do this afterwards, so you don't have to do this right now. And I'm just going to give you a minute to get settled, and then I will be starting the timer. And this time the timer will be set for 5 minutes. So if you're doing this on your own, I'd like you to work with 3 minutes on your own. If you've been practicing yin yoga, if you have a practice already, you could do 5 minutes, you could do up to 10 minutes on each side. So the most important thing right now is that you come into a shape that doesn't feel overwhelming to your system. So just noticing that the sounds of the bells have dissolved. And bringing all of your attention right now into your body, just as it is in this shape, in this space. Notice the breath. And notice how the body is breathing right now. The shapes will open the body's access to assimilating breath. So where is the body breathing? What parts of you are expanding and contracting with the breath? And see if you could just softly land your attention into the part of the body where you feel the breath most, this touch of the breath, wherever that is. And now notice how the body feels right now. So what are you noticing come up? What sensations? And there might be a few parts of the body that you're noticing. See if you can attend to the part of the body that's calling out to you in the strongest way, in the loudest way. And bring all of your attention right there. And now imagine or visualize the breath in that space. You could gently deepen the breath here. So it's more like a passive ujjayi breath. So a passive ujjayi. Ujjayi translates to victorious breath in Sanskrit. And we could emphasize the breath in this way by simply breathing in and out of the nose, gently constricting the back of the throat and directing the breath down into that space. So you're hearing the bells, just pause here with the bells, pause here with the sounds. Just kind of opening your awareness. We were in that shape for 5 minutes together. What's really important, remember in the beginning of our session today, I talked about transitions. So this transition from one side to the second side is really important. I want you to take your time here and move with absolute attention. Very slowly, guiding the knees back to center. Slowly releasing your right hand down by your side. And just pause here. The knees could be bent, feet grounded, hips in neutral. Bring both hands to your belly space, that hara space, that space below the navel. And let's just take a minute here at center to breathe into the hara. Just noticing or attending to that earth energy right here in the body. Opening to this possibility that attending to this space is very grounding. That the more you come in and create intimacy with this space deep inside, the more you'll be able to tap into wisdom, which is cultivated by clarity, which is related to this sense of calm that we're searching for right now. It's all right here, just trusting that. But it's developing a relationship first, this inner knowing. Now, just as slowly, we'll begin to transition to the second side. So you can cross your left knee over your right. You could just stack the knees and bring them both over to your right, coming into a reclined spinal twist, second side. And then once you're there, you could extend the left arm up overhead. So in just a moment, you'll hear the bells signifying our 5 minutes on this second side. And again, just assimilating here in this shape. It's important that there are no expectations going in, especially when we're working with the same shape on a different side. There's no expectations that this experience will be the same as the first side. There's also no expectations that it'll be different. So just cultivating this curiosity about what's here right now. We're listening in deeply to the wisdom of the body. Yin yoga really providing this safe space for the body to communicate. The body communicates much slower than the mind. And that sometimes is the way that we start noticing the difference. The mind is always going to want to jump in and make our world safe, feel safe, right? It's always going to want to solve problems, come to a solution. And the body takes a lot of time communicating those things. But quite often, when we start listening deeply to the wisdom of the body, we find the way. So, what part of you is calling out the loudest right now? What are you feeling? What are you noticing? Where is the body communicating from right now? Bring all of your attention there and breathe. And just a few more breaths right here. And for some reason, the bells didn't work for this one. I'm not sure why. But our time has ended in this shape. So I'd like each of you to very, very slowly, again, moving mindfully. The yin energy as it settles in starts making us feel slower, deeper, heavier, more relaxed. There's no reason to rush out of this cultivation of calm. Just take your time, a few breaths here at center. And really slowly, when you're ready, make your way up. You could open your eyes when you're ready. You could come back to our virtual space together when you're ready. We've gone a few minutes over. I have to get used to packing in as much as I'm trying to pack in this 1 hour together. So I know some of you may have other obligations that you need to jump off and get to, but I wanted to take a moment here just to open this up for questions and see if anybody had, or anything you wanted to share about the experience today, or instruction. The instruction really is to work with what we're offering. So anything that felt supportive today, whether it was just 3 minutes grounding in your seat, grounding in your hands, whether it was that hara hold that we did, whether it was the yin yoga, the reclined spinal twist. When I went through a period of deep grief, my teachers told me to do 10 minutes a day of this reclined spinal twist. And I did for months. So I've been leaning into that again, knowing that holding on to a lot of loss, right? So just working with those two shapes can be your practice, just 10 minutes, right? It doesn't have to be this long session that makes you feel like you don't have time for. Okay. These shapes are here for you to support you. So whatever it is that felt supportive today, use that. Reach out to us through the portal. Reach out to us directly through Facebook or our website. And, we'll get back to you. We'll try to answer any questions. But we're really looking forward to getting to know each of you better. So I don't see any questions coming in. Just checking the screen here. So we'll go ahead and close this session for today. But again, lean into us. This is a community that we're creating here. And we'll look forward very much to seeing you tomorrow with Christine as we get into more qualities, starting with connection and how important that is right now. So this is one step in that direction. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day. And I'll see you on Thursday. Okay. Bye, everybody.